The Pathless is a third-person action game taking place on a mystical island recently afflicted by a dark curse, conjured by a being known as the Godslayer. You play as a hunter, the island's only resistance against this new evil. Despite having a strong focus on narrative, the game doesn't tell you much about the main character. All we know is that she is a lone hunter with ample mastery of the bow, while also being quick on her toes and having the ability to connect with the spirits of the island. These spirits are referred to as the Tall Ones, magnificent creatures responsible for maintaining the sanctity of the land. Ever since the Godslayer's arrival, however, they have been corrupted, and subsequently transformed into vile monsters. In order to fight back against this curse, you must cleanse the towers that are serving as its emitters. The world is split into multiple plateaus, with towers on each one, and the story takes you across these landscapes. I'll get more into the gameplay loop later on though. As for the Godslayer himself, he is actually more complex than he initially comes across. At first, you only know about his overall goals, use the power of the Tall Ones to enact his plans of controlling the world, but as you progress through the narrative, you begin to learn about his motivations. While I didn't necessarily sympathise with him, I could understand some of his points. Stuff like this made the Pathless feel surprisingly moving. The main character goes through quite the journey throughout the game's runtime. To call it a bumpy road is definitely one way of putting it. She goes through many low points and is tested over and over again. And yet, despite the bleakness, there's always a thin layer of hope that's visible. You can see it in the hunter's determination to fight against the evil pestering the land. You can see it in the various interactions she has with the spirits, and you can see it in the connection between her and her eagle companion, in the support they give for each other. Just as a quick side note, you can pet the eagle. In fact, it's actually quite an important mechanic, as it allows you to fully regenerate your stamina. They made petting an integral mechanic. I love it. The emotional impact is further boosted by its presentation. Everything about the game feels cinematic, whether that's the confrontations you have with the Godslayer, flying through massive landscapes with your eagle, or chasing the corrupted spirits through a burning landscape. It's safe to say that the majority of my time spent playing this had my unbridled attention. Outside of the main story, there's also quite a lot of world building to experience, for those who wish to look for it. Through various remains, writings and wall carvings, you get to learn about the people who used to live on the island. You get to see how the calamity unfolded and how it affected the society living here, through their reflections. The perspectives shift depending on where you are, with some regarding it as the end times, whereas others seemingly welcoming the change. It's an in-depth detail that I greatly appreciated. If I talk more, I'll probably end up spoiling something, so I'll conclude this section by saying that The Pathless has a really well-written story, carrying a multitude of themes that all blend together to provide an impactful experience. As I mentioned before, the world is divided into plateaus. What I didn't mention is that the game is also open world, though from the footage you'd probably be able to tell that by now. Nevertheless, it's not gigantic per se, but it is comprehensive, with dozens upon dozens of interesting locations situated in all of the biomes. You'll mostly be running or flying through open plains and forests, but there are also ruins and vast mountainscapes to roam around in as well. What makes the Pathless different from quite a lot of open world games is that exploration isn't just encouraged, it's basically mandatory. For the majority of the time, your objective will be to cleanse nearby towers that are spreading the disease, but in order to do that, you need to collect lightstones. These are placed into the tower to stop the infection. Lightstones are found throughout the world, tucked away in various locations, some obvious, some not, usually obtained by solving puzzles, something I'll get to later on. Were the world not as intricately detailed as it is, I would have treated this as a slog, but alas, the level design is fantastic enough to negate that risk for the majority of the time. Each plateau you travel to feels distinct, and is better than the last. There are so many places to explore, ranging from ruined villages to forgotten temples, to broken down aqueducts and various fortifications. The list goes on, really. Some of these are more expansive than others depending on what they contain. The world-building elements I mentioned earlier give these places even more charm, as well as providing an extra reason to explore more. As a whole, the game is beautiful to look at. The art style is full of charm, and the characters, both good and bad, immediately catch the eye with their uniquely created designs. I also want to quickly mention the animations, specifically the gameplay ones, and just how brilliant they are. The way the hunter shoots her bow and arrow is incredibly smooth, especially when you're simultaneously running. It looks so good. I would often fly around the map with my eagle companion to get a view of the surrounding area, and each time I did it was spectacular. Moments like this showcase the amount of work that went into making these environments. They're wide in scale, and yet they have plenty of depth to them. They also feel really immersive thanks to the great use of sound and weather effects. Bonus points to the soundtrack too. Throat singing and a wide variety of instruments, it's absolutely brilliant. I've talked a lot about the story and the visuals, but how does the game feel to play? This is where I begin to have a couple of criticisms, but nevertheless, let's delve into it. As you might have gathered from looking at this footage, the Pathless is a fast-paced game. Because of how wide the environments are, there's always an emphasis on moving quickly to reach your destination. The way to go about this is through shooting talismans. You can find these scattered around everywhere, and shooting them gives you stamina, allowing you to sprint for longer. When your stamina is depleted, you're no longer able to sprint, so shooting these is vital to progressing forward. When shot at in quick succession, you are able to chain a speed boost, getting faster and faster over time. And you're even able to use these as a jump boost should you wish to remain in the air. Later on, new types of talismans appear, providing different benefits that are related to their surrounding environments. While some might find this to be a tedious activity, personally I never did. The game has a smart aim system that automatically locks onto the nearest target, so it's very easy to traverse through the world quickly, and while there were a couple of times where the targeting system didn't work quite the way I wanted it to, the majority of the time it was fine, and honestly quite satisfying. It isn't always fast-paced though. There are plenty of slower moments that require a more careful approach. 90% of the time these involve solving a wide array of puzzles. Like I said before, a lot of the lightstones you find in the world are obtained through completing these challenges. These are pretty varied for the most part, with wavering difficulties. While some did feel repetitive at times or just awkward to navigate through, I did enjoy playing them. The other 10% of time is allocated to the corrupted zones. These are essentially giant red domes that appear and disappear around the map. They're quite dramatic to look at from the outside, and depending on how close you are to it, they will spread towards you, something you also have to keep in mind when solving a puzzle. On the inside, however, you are thrown into a tense stealth situation. I'll admit these can get a bit repetitive. To summarise, your pet eagle becomes separated from you, and you have to find her. In your way is one of the corrupted tall ones. You have to keep out of its line of sight, freezing when its light shines on you. Once you're reunited with the eagle, the storm fades away and you're able to continue. These situations can be avoided if you do your best to steer clear of entering the zones, but sometimes you'll have to clear them, especially if they are covering a tower or a puzzle area. I didn't mind them, but I can see how they may feel like a chore. In all honesty though, my criticisms for this game lie in other areas. My first critique goes to the gameplay loop. This one's a bit of a minor gripe I have. I just think over time it starts to feel a bit tedious. To be fair, I only started feeling like this when I arrived at the mountainous environment, so it took a while, but the gist of the gameplay loop doesn't change much. It is just essentially solve puzzles, collect lightstone, cleanse tower, fight boss, then repeat multiple times. This pattern can be interrupted with bouts of exploration, and there are story moments that do try to vary things up a bit, but at the very least, by the time you reach the final environment, chances are you will feel a bit tired of it all. Luckily at that point you're nearing the end of the loop, and the final segment of the game truly is spectacular. But I won't spoil it. Instead, I'll move on to my next criticism. As much as I appreciate the amount of places there are to explore, it all feels surprisingly unrewarding. Outside of collecting lightstones, you can also obtain XP points which, once you get enough, allow you to unlock an extra flap ability for your eagle, which basically lets you fly higher and for longer. But that's it. There's no other real reason to explore, unless you want to read more on the world building. What ended up happening was that I would explore until I had enough light stones, then I'd leave and progress to the next area without much of a second thought. While this is far from game ruining, I do think it's a missed opportunity to not have more to obtain out there. What this does mean is that if you're a completionist and want to find every single lightstone, you're out for a long, uneventful trek. If you're not a completionist though, there isn't really any reason to explore outside of the bounds of the main narrative. I'm going to end this section on a positive note, however, and quickly talk about the boss fights. They are outstanding. Each one has you on the edge of your seat, and all of their confrontations are completely unique, especially the final boss. These are easily the most standout segments of the whole experience. I think it's fair to say that the game is at its best when it's at its fastest. The quick-natured movement and shooting are incredibly smooth and satisfying, and it absolutely delivers in some of the more intense sequences, such as the boss fights. The world is fascinating to explore, filled with depth and intrigue, even if the exploration as a whole could have been more rewarding. The puzzles are engaging, with some requiring you to think outside of the box. Despite times where it can feel a bit repetitive, the Pathless succeeds in delivering a captivating experience with a moving narrative and varied gameplay. It's open enough to appeal to any kind of gamer out there. Thanks for watching. As usual, if you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more reviews like this one, then be sure to subscribe. Let me know if there are any indie games you'd like me to review. Until the next one, I'll see you next time. Bye.